Is Greece one of your bucket list destinations? All three of us have been there, and we're here to tell you that if it's not on your list, go ahead and add it. In today's episode, Jess is sharing how she went on a luxury vacation to Greece, valued at $10,000 and paid less than $500. Stay tuned to hear how she did it. Welcome to the Travel Hacking Mom Show. We are three moms who've discovered how to leverage credit card welcome offers to get hundreds of thousands of dollars in travel expenses for nearly free. We've used credit card points and miles to take vacations to places like Hawaii, Paris, Greece, the Maldives, Italy, and so much more. And the best part? We each still have an 800 plus credit score. Imagine being able to book a vacation without having to check your bank account. It's totally possible, and we're here to show you how. Hey, I'm Alex.
And I'm Pam, Alex's mom.
And I'm Jess. We are travel hacking moms.
So today, Jess is the star of our show as we interview her about her recent trip to Greece. So Jess, how the heck did this trip to Greece come about?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So I have wanted to go to Greece. Like my best friend and I talked about going to Greece 10 years ago when we were much younger and didn't have as much responsibilities as we do now.
And you probably weren't travel hacking at that point, I'm assuming.
We weren't travel hacking. Well, the whole reason we didn't go is because we couldn't afford it. I think we were in college. I think we were in college at the time, and we started looking into it, and we were like, no, we can't really afford to stay at the kind of places that we want to stay at. And so we ended up not doing it. And summer 2021, we both got COVID at the same time. I got it from her. And we were just like at home quarantining, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And so I was researching trips that I wanted to take. And so I texted her and I said, hey, we should make Greece happen. I'll tell you what cards to open. Like, let's do it. And she was like, yes, I need to get out of this house. Like, let's do it. So that is sort of how it started.
I'm just curious, Jess. So this friend of yours, does she live in Houston with you, or how did she become your friend, or so that she was willing to trust you with all of this?
Yeah, so she does. She actually lives right down the street from me, and we have known each other since we were kids. And so we go way back, and she is what I like to call a travel hacker light. And basically for me, what that means is she does not actively seek out cards. She basically just texts me and says, hey, what card should I open now? Or if I'm trying to get her to go on a trip with me, I will text her and say, hey, this is the card you need to open. So she trusts me and she believes in travel hacking, but she's just not quite at our level.
Sounds like my sister and a lot of my friends.
Yeah, same.
So when you decided to go, how did you decide when to actually book it?
No, I mean, she has a much stricter work schedule than I do. And so it was basically a matter of like, when can we go to where you will miss the fewest days of work, but we can still go for, a good amount of time. We wanted to go for at least a week. And so we decided to go in 2022 over Labor Day week. And so she works for the federal government. And so she would have off on Labor Day, and we would leave the Friday night before, and then we would come back the following, like 2 Sundays later. And so we went from a Friday night to a Sunday, and she technically only missed 4 days of work. And so it worked out well. And it was a time where like our kids would be in school. And so, we wouldn't have to really find someone to watch them during the day. And so that timing just sort of worked out. And we figured at the time, we were like, well, surely by September 2022, like COVID will be over with. No one will be getting COVID anymore, But yeah, so that's just sort of how we came up with the timing. And I did some research, and it seemed like September was a good time to go to Greece. It's more of like a shoulder season versus the summer tends to be the peak season. And so yeah, that's how we decided on the dates.
So one of the things that I was thinking about is that we've been to Greece, and both times that I've been have been the shoulder season too, and that is like a perfect time. It's not quite as hot as it can be in the summertime. Really a great time to go. But there are so many islands in Greece. So there's so many places I want to go to. How did you decide what islands you were going to visit?
I decided based on where the Hyatts were located is basically how I decided which islands I wanted to go to. And I know we ended up we flew into Athens and we ended up going to Mykonos and Santorini, which I know is like super, everyone goes to Mykonos and Santorini. And I agree with you. Like there are so many that I want to go back to. But I knew I wanted to go to Santorini because I've seen pictures of Santorini and I was like, I need to go there. It looks gorgeous. And then Mykonos just sort of worked out. When we originally planned that we wanted to go to Greece all those years ago, we had talked about going to Mykonos. And so it was kind of just like we wanted to go and check it out and see what it was all about. And there were Hyatts on Mykonos and Hyatts on Santorini. So it worked out.
So that's kind of a good segue into how you got your hotel points. So let's talk about your hotels first, and then we'll talk about flights. So tell us, like, where did you stay? Obviously, we know you stayed with Hyatts.
Yeah.
Which hotel did you stay at? And then how did you get the points? And how did you do that, like, with your friend? Did the two of you split it? Did you... And also, when did you book it? Like, how far in advance did you have to book it to get these places? So that was a lot of questions. Let's see if you remember them all.
Yeah, no, so one of the things I love about Hyatt is that it's so easy, to earn Hyatt points because you can earn them through the Hyatt cards or you can earn them through Chase and then transfer them over. And it is easy to combine points between two or more people. You don't have to live in the same household. You don't have to be related. You can transfer your Hyatt points to anyone. And so I knew I wanted to stay at Hyatt. We flew into Athens, and in Athens we stayed at the Grand Hyatt Athens, which I had a couple of free night certificates with Hyatt, and I was able to use those there. So we stayed 2 nights at the Grand Hyatt Athens. I believe it's a category 3. It's either a 3 or a 4. And so I used 2 free night certificates for us to stay in Athens. And then in Mykonos, we stayed at the Mykonos Riviera Hotel and Spa. That one was 30,000 Hyatt points a night. So we split that one. We stayed 2 nights, and so we each paid 60,000 Hyatt points. And then in Santorini, we stayed at the Canavis Ia Suites, which was amazing. That one is a whopping 40,000 Hyatt points a night, and we stayed 3 nights. So it was 120,000 Hyatt points total, or 60,000 each. As far as I am concerned with my share, I have a lot of Chase points and a lot of Hyatt points, so I didn't really have to do much. I already had that many points just from racking up Chase. I'm constantly looking to rack up Chase points. For her, I actually referred her for the Chase Sapphire Preferred. She had the Chase Sapphire Preferred previously, but it had been more than 48 months. And since
That's pretty good. She already had such a good card. She hadn't even gotten into travel hacking yet.
Yeah. So, she did the whole downgraded it, waited a while, and then I referred her for the Sapphire Preferred. I believe when I referred her, the bonus was like 80,000 points. And so she got that. I got the referral bonus, which I told her I would put towards, our Hyatt total. And so after all that, we had enough between the two of us to book it. And I booked. So the one in Santorini, the Canavis Ia Suites, is notoriously difficult to book. I booked that one 13 months in advance. When the calendar opened, I booked that one, which I know was not realistic for a lot of people. There are several Hyatts on Santorini, and they all honestly look amazing. And so I wouldn't fret if you cannot get that one. But yeah, I booked that one 13 months in advance. I think the Mykonos one I maybe booked 9 or 10 months in advance. And then the Grand Hyatt Athens wasn't difficult to book. I think I booked that one maybe 4 or 5 months in advance. So, and then we combined points. Hyatt has what's called a points combining form that you can Google. So she transferred her half of her points to me, and
I love when you can go on a trip like that with somebody, because it just makes it so much cheaper than if you went with your husband. That.
Yeah, no, if I went with my husband, that would have been, it was already even just paying half of those points was oh, that's a lot of points, for one trip, but it was like a bucket list trip,
Yeah.
So I was like, if we're going, like, I don't know when I'm gonna be able to go back.
Well, you talked about doing it for 10 years. You had to do it right.
Yeah, I was like, we have to stay at the nice places. We have to, do it up big. And so it was worth it for us to splurge on those. But I will say there are cheaper, options on points that require fewer points if you didn't want to splurge quite as much as we did.
Hey, Jess, I asked you recently about what your most favorite Hyatt stay was. And what did you tell me your most favorite Hyatt stay was?
Yeah, it was the Cannabis EO Suites in Santorini. It was just like, I mean, we just had the standard base room, but even that was like amazing. It was 2 stories. There was like stairs and the bed was upstairs and the living room was downstairs. And we woke up in the morning and sat up in bed and the windows were open and it looked like a postcard. Like I was telling Pam, I was like, it looked like a green screen. Like it didn't even look real. 'Cause that hotel is, like, on the caldera, and so you just look out and you can, like, see the Mediterranean, you can see all the white like, the picture you think when you think of Greece, like, the caldera with, like, the white buildings, that's what you see when you just sit up in bed, and I was like, we kept saying to each other, "How are we here? How how are we staying at this hotel for free?" Like, it's insane. I mean,
And that hotel is, like, very expensive, right? Like, if you were to stay there on cash?
yeah, so I actually have a little spreadsheet that I put together when I was planning this trip, and so the room we were in would have been $2,000 a night.
Whoa.
So
Oh,
for our 3 nights, it would have been $6,000 to stay there, and obviously we would not have
Yeah.
paid that. Like, now you can understand why we couldn't afford to
yeah.
go where we wanted to go in college. But yeah, it would have been $6,000 for us to stay there, and so it was just like a dream come true
That
to
is
go.
insane.
That hotel is not like a traditional it's not like a Hyatt brand hotel, correct? Like,
Right,
so tell us kind of how that worked and some of the benefits you got when you stayed there.
right. So it is part of Hyatt's small luxury hotel collection, which means that while it's not technically a Hyatt hotel, they have partnered with Hyatt, and so you get a bunch of benefits just for staying there and booking through Hyatt. You do not have to have status with Hyatt. So as long as you're a Hyatt member, which is free to join on their website, you get a ton of benefits. Like we got free breakfast daily, and this hotel was not cheap. Like if we paid out of pocket for breakfast, it would have been a pretty penny to eat breakfast there because the breakfast is, like, outside on a terrace that overlooks the caldera and is beautiful, and so we got free breakfast, free Wi-Fi, early check-in, late checkout. You are normally able to get a room upgrade, like a 1 category room upgrade based on availability. When we were there, it was sold out. It's not a very big hotel. So, it was sold out when we were there, but we were ecstatic with just the base room, and all the rooms have, like, a little plunge pool suite or a little
That's
plunge
so
pool, like,
nice.
on the balcony, and so we would come back from dinner, and I would just, like, get on my swimsuit and get a glass of champagne and sit in the plunge pool and look at the caldera all lit up at night, and I was like, "Is this real?" Like, it was yeah.
Oh, it's so amazing. Yeah. It just takes me back to when my mom and I went back in 2018, and I'm like, "I miss it, I wanna go back." But we didn't stay in such a nice place as you, so us that's on my wish
But
list.
it was still amazing. And,
But it was
sometimes
still amazing, yeah.
I'll have people that will say, "Oh, you know what? Santorini was kind of disappointing," or "I don't know what the hype is." Well, I had to go back the second time I went to Santorini. I don't know if I can go back to Greece and not go to Santorini. I get maybe I'm a sucker for hype, but I love it.
I I totally agree, and, like, I mean, I had hyped it up in my mind, and then we got there and I was like, "This is even better than I imagined."
Yeah.
So
I think sometimes people think like you hear that it's really crowded, and it is like at sunset when the cruise ships come by, but then when those cruise ships leave, it's not crowded. It's
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's because we went in September, but, like, we really didn't have a huge issue
yeah,
with
that's when we went too, and I didn't feel like it was bad either. So I'm like, I don't know what it's like in July, and I
Right.
don't plan on finding out. I loved going in September.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So I'm assuming then with you booking that hotel 13 months in advance that you booked your hotels first and then figured out your flights?
Yeah, so we booked the hotels first, and I just said, "If we have to change it, we have to change it, but I want to, secure these dates," and it just so happened that, like, the stars aligned and our flights worked out the way we wanted them to, and so that's not always the case, but it does help to plan in advance, and people always when I tell them how far in advance I book trips, they are like, "Oh my gosh, that's so far in advance," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I get the flights and the hotels that I want," you know? And so it's a trade-off, It's either you book far in advance and you get exactly what you want, or you wait and you kinda have to just settle for whatever's left, and assuming there is availability,
And
So
availability that's not a ton more points too.
yeah. Yeah.
Like you're getting what you want for the price you want. You
Yeah.
have time to like, oh, I booked my hotel 13 months ago. I have some time here to figure out my flights. If they're not looking good right now, I can wait and see if more
Exactly.
availability opens up. So that's really nice.
So, speaking of flights, tell us about them.
Okay. So I was super pumped about our flights. I knew that we wanted to fly Turkish Airlines because I had heard a lot about them, and they fly from Houston to Athens with a layover in Istanbul. And so I was like, that's perfect. And so I opened at the time, the city premiere had an 80,000 um point sign up bonus. And so I opened the city premiere and then I told my friend, I was like, you need to open this card also. So she opened it and was approved right away. The nice thing about the city premiere is it gets 3x on a lot of really good categories like restaurants and gas and groceries. And so I basically told her, try to meet the minimum spend in those categories because we each need 90,000 points to fly round trip in business class to Greece on Turkish Airlines.
What a great price.
Yes.
Yeah,
Whoa.
that's literally that's amazing.
Yeah. So we both hit our minimum spends. I was like, buy a lot of groceries, get your gas, fill up your tank with your city premiere, use it when you go dine out. So, anyways, after hitting our $4,000 minimum spend, we both had over 90,000 points on our city premiere card. And then Turkish Airlines opened up their calendar and our flights were available for the 45,000 each way.
So did you book those like right when they became available then?
Yeah. Yeah. So what we did was I transferred my 90,000 to my Turkish account. She transferred her 90,000 to her Turkish account, and then I booked us both one way, and she booked us both coming like, I booked both of us going to Athens, and then she booked both of us coming home from Athens, and so we did 2 one ways, but that way we each used our 90,000 miles, and that was only my 2nd flight ever in business class, and it was her 1st flight ever in business class, and so it was just really fun to be able to do that, and the flights, I think each one would have been, like, $4,000 if we were paying cash. It's just crazy, like, one welcome offer saved us almost $4,000 each.
Well, Turkish is such a nice airline. And that's what Alex flew her
Yeah.
for business class seat was on Turkish when we went to Greece too. And tell them the favorite part about meal service, Alex.
Oh, yeah, Jess, you'll have to tell us if you love this too. But when they come by to give you your food, the little guy, the server or whatever, they're in like a chef hat and they have their little gold trolley
Yeah, it's like they have chef on board.
and little tea light. It's like so like cute and fancy.
Yeah, the food was amazing, and we were in business class from both ways from Houston to Istanbul and then from Istanbul to Athens. And the food was amazing. We slept so well. Like, I think we each got 6 or 7 hours of sleep,
That's
which is
amazing.
a lot on a
Yeah.
flight.
How long was the flight?
I think to Istanbul, it was like 11 hours, and then we had like a 2-hour layover in Istanbul, and we got to go to the Turkish Business Lounge, which I think both of you have been, and it's amazing, and, like,
Oh,
it's
one of my favorite lounges.
yeah, it's like an experience in and of
Yeah.
itself just to go to that lounge, and then the flight from Istanbul to Turkey was just, like, an hour and a half, but even on that I mean, not Istanbul to Athens was, like, only an hour and a half, but even on that flight, we were in business class, and we got served, like, a full meal.
And was that lay flat seats as well on that flight? Same
Yeah,
plane?
yeah, it was the exact same plane.
That's how it was for us too, and which is really nice because a lot of times when you're doing a business class flight in Europe, it's just like a normal plane with the middle seat blocked. So
Yeah, no,
that's
it was
so
the exact
nice.
same plane, and so but we were so full, because we ate 2 or 3 meals on the flight from Houston to Istanbul, and then we went to the lounge, we went to the Turkish Business Lounge and ate a bunch of food there, and then we got back on the plane, and they start bringing us a menu, and the chefs come out, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're feeding us again?" And so
Yeah.
we did not go hungry at all on our venture to Athens.
I'll say too, like having flown a couple other business class flights since then, I think Turkish has some of the best food of any
I totally agree.
flight that I've gone on. And I've done Emirates and Qatar as well. And think the food on Turkish was better than those, even.
Yeah. It was like that was definitely the best part, in my opinion, was the food, and, like, the service was also really good.
Yeah. And did they do turn down service for you?
Yes.
I love it.
My friend was like, "How am I ever gonna fly economy again?" I was like, "I know, I
You're
don't
like,
know."
well, I will have some more cards I can recommend for you.
I know, I know.
And so nice too that you could do it out of Houston and you didn't have to like fly into a different airport
Yeah,
to
we
take that business flight. Because when we did it, we had to fly to Chicago and then we flew from Chicago to Istanbul. So nice that you could just do it right out of Houston.
Yeah, and so it was super convenient. We got access beforehand. Like, my friend normally flies Southwest everywhere, which I'm not knocking Southwest. We fly Southwest a lot too and have a companion pass and all that. But she just had no idea that
Like this even existed.
experiences like this exist.
Yeah.
So it was like even just starting at the airport, we had access to the Polaris Lounge in Houston because Turkish and United are, both Star Alliance partners. And so if you're flying international business class, you get access to the Polaris Lounge. And even just in the lounge, she was like, "Wait, we get all this food for
Well,
free?"
yeah,
Like,
because you had food there too. Like you really didn't go on.
oh my gosh, we were so full. So we had like dinner and champagne and the cookie skillet in the Polaris Lounge. Then we got on the plane and had dinner and breakfast and then lunch at the lounge and then a second lunch. So we got our money's worth just like in food.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like I just opened her eyes to the possibilities that there are, with flying.
Yeah, that is awesome. I think that's one of the things that's really fun about sharing travel hacking with people, even people who are travel hacker lights, is that to watch their expression about what they're able to do with points and miles is kind of priceless. And it's just really fun to be able to share that kind of experience with either a friend or a spouse or a sister or anybody.
Totally agree.
Is there any like last things you want to share about your trip before we end the episode?
It was a huge pinch me moment, and I know that we talk about that a lot, but it's just one of those things where it was, like, decades in the making, us going to Greece, and it finally happened, and I'm so glad that we waited and went how we wanted to versus trying to scrap together
Yeah, like do a budget vacation.
our money and, like, do a very budget Greece trip. Like, I'm sure it still would have been great, but to be able to go, I mean, but the thing is we would have spent more going the budget route than we did.
Yeah, your budget trip would have cost more.
Yeah, I mean, we spent, I think the taxes on our flights were around $400 each, and then the Hyatts were completely free because Hyatt doesn't charge taxes or resort fees or anything on awards days. And so, we paid for the ferries between the islands, but that wasn't super expensive, so for less than $1,000, we went for 7 nights in, like, luxury properties in business class, round trip, and just had, like, an amazing bucket list experience for less than we would have spent cobbling our money together in college.
I love it. I love how your trip just shows that you can take a luxury vacation to an amazing sought-after destination like Greece for nearly free. You can get your friends involved in your new hobby and make it even more fun,
Exactly.
and even get some referral points along the way for referring your friends.
If you want to enjoy all the beauty that Greece has to offer, make sure to check out the show notes and register for our masterclass so you can learn how to travel for nearly free too.
Thanks so much for listening to the Travel Hacking Mom Show. Make sure to hit the subscribe or follow button from wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. Want to start jet setting even faster? Follow the links in the show notes to learn about everything we discussed in today's episode. And to stay connected and follow along, follow us on Instagram at Travel Hacking Mom. We can't wait to see where in the world points and miles take you.